Our starting point at this hour, however, is with an update on Zambia's tortuous debt restructuring journey. Barely 24 hours ago, the International Monetary Fund approved the disbursement of $187 million to the country, despite there still not yet being an agreement between Zambia and its commercial lenders on exactly how to restructure the country's external commercial debt. Earlier this year, the fund had withheld disbursement due to delays in getting a restructuring agreement with the country's bilateral lenders on restructuring about $6.3 billion worth of debt. A restructuring deal was eventually signed on in October. An agreement in principle with Eurobond holders to restructure Eurobonds worth about $3 billion, however, was rejected by the official creditor committee barely a month later. Now, weaker output in Africa's second largest copper producer has dented the currency. We're looking at the copper output numbers a little later in the hour. And with the kwacha losing at least 40% of its value against the dollar so far this year, that has stoked inflation. Inflation hit a 20-month high of 12.9% in the month of November. All right, then let's dig a little deeper into the details of where Zambia goes from here. Mercedes Vera Martin is the mission chief for Zambia at the International Monetary Fund. She's joining us live on the program from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for your time this evening. So let's start with the debt question for Zambia. We still don't have an agreement in place with private creditors that works within the framework of the deal agreed to with bilateral lenders in June. Can you give us a sense of what the points of disagreement here are?
Thanks, Rama. Before I turn to your question, let me congratulate Zambia for completing the second review that you just announced. I think it recognizes the commendable efforts that the authorities are taking in sustaining macroeconomic stability, restoring debt restructuring, and putting in place reforms to promote more inclusive growth. In terms of the debt restructuring, the authorities and the private creditors have been working in reaching an agreement that also delivered the authorities' commitment under the official creditor committee agreement, which is comparability of treatment, that the burden sharing among the different creditors is equitable. In the last discussions with the official creditors, the authorities received the message that the latest agreements with the bondholders was not meeting comparability of treatment, and the authorities continue to discuss and make good faith efforts in order to deliver on those commitments.
Are there any timelines by which those negotiations have to be completed?
I don't think there are no fixed timelines. This is a new process under the common framework. I think there is a lot of learning by doing. We definitely would like to see progress in reaching an agreement with the private creditors so we can have a timely implementation of the debt restructuring, because the protracted process may take a toll on Zambia's economic recovery.
Indeed, it certainly would. What about disbursements for next year? Because this program runs all the way to 2025. Are the disbursements penciled into the program next year? I believe it's April and October. Are they going to be contingent on there being progress in this debt restructuring program? And if so, what kind of progress indicators is the fund looking for?
Thank you, Rama. I think it's premature to say at this point what are the contingencies on the process that will allow us or not to move forward under the program. We have policies that allow us to move forward with a comprehensive debt restructuring agreement that the authorities have reached with the official creditors, and the good faith efforts that they are putting in terms of engaging with the private creditors.
Looking at the numbers that came out with the release yesterday, the fund's forecasting a marginal change, right, in tax revenue as a percentage of GDP in Zambia in 2024 and 2025. I believe the top end of that range is about 22%. What sort of tax reforms does Zambia have to undertake as part of this $1.3 billion program?
So, over the course of the program, we are supporting the Zambian revenue mobilization plan that the authorities approved in 2022. They have taken already measures to remove exemptions on fuel. They are taking efforts to broaden the tax base and also increase tax compliance. So they are improving, IT system, coordination, provision of services. So for 2024, we are going to see a large taxpayers office being put in place, and also a mining unit to monitor mining taxes more closely. There are also efforts in terms of tax administration, reducing tax evasion. Just to give you a number, 80% of the taxes collected by the authorities is coming from 0.3% of the tax base.
Indeed, it's a fairly narrow spread as far as taxes are concerned. One last question for you, though, because when I looked at the original program numbers baked into the agreement back in 2022, the country is expected to post increases of about 13 to 15% year on year in different categories: income tax, taxes on mining, VAT. And we've seen some revenue lines in Zambia underperforming in the first half of the year. Mining royalties, for example, 23% below target, customs duties, 14% below target, and so on and so forth. Is the IMF confident that Zambia can still meet those revenue forecasts for 2024?
Yes, we are. That's the short question, but let me tell you. I mean, we are seeing in 2023 underperformance in mining revenues, and this is coming from two fronts. There are lower copper prices, and there is lower copper production. And the lower copper production is coming mainly from delays in some of the investments that we were expecting in 2023, and also from some flooding shocks that some of the open pit mines suffer in April. For 2024, we are seeing a recovery in mining revenues and a recovery over the medium term that is coming from the increased production, and also not only mining revenues, but also we are seeing that the non-mining revenues are doing better because our growth outlook has been upgraded, mainly coming from the non-agricultural, non-mining sector.